Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I still see some people trickling in. Hope you had a good little break. We're going to get started with the Ask the Experts AMA here today with the PowerShell team. So we're going to first give brief introductions just so you all know us and what we are kind of specializing in. So first, my name is Stephen Bucher. I am a PM on the PowerShell team. I do a lot of stuff with predictive intelligence and interactive improvements to PowerShell and anything AI related. Before I actually move on, I'll address the big QR code in the room that we will be accepting questions both out loud here and on the forum here. So if you don't feel comfortable speaking to the greater group, you feel free to submit a question there. I can't promise we'll get to anything. It's going to be time dependent, but we will try to address everything we can in the time that we have. So then I'll pass it off to Steve.
Oh, is my mic on? Okay. So I'm Steve Lee, and by the way, if we can't get through it, you can also try to find us afterwards, and I'm more than happy to answer questions that way too. I'm Steve Lee. I'm the engineer manager for PowerShell, OpenSSH on Windows, DSC, PowerShell Gallery, Secret Management, a bunch of modules, blah, blah, blah.
Damien Caro. Can you hear me? Yep. All right. My name is Damien. I'm the product manager for Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell.
I'm Amber Erickson. I am an engineer. I work on PS Resource Get and the PowerShell Gallery.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mutemwa Masheke. I'm a product manager in the Azure governance team. So I work closely with the Azure Resource Graph team and the Azure Policy team and the many other products in our ecosystem. And for PowerShell specifically, I'm the PM as well for Azure machine configuration. And so we provide a first-class Microsoft experience to deploy DSC at scale.
Hello, I'm Demitrius Nelon. I'm the product manager for Winget, the Windows package manager. And hopefully this year, last year, and every year from coming forward, I'll continue to be an honorary member of the PowerShell team.
Hey folks, I'm Arnav Chattopadhyay. I'm product manager on Azure Arc, focusing on hybrid and multi-cloud, and likewise looking forward to being an honorary member.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex. I'm from the China team. I take charge the PM of the Azure PowerShell, so I can help answer some Azure PowerShell questions. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone. So we will be, like I said, taking questions from the audience. We have Justin here, our runner. He'll be running to you with the mic. So preferably if someone could ask a question there and then there, so we can get him running a bit more, that would be good, No, but, and like I said, we'll keep the QR code up and I'll try to monitor it as best I can. I'll answer them as they come in. So first, actually, question I think we want to address first, because we've been getting a lot at this conference, is when is PowerShell 7 coming to Windows? Yeah, I think people have been wondering that, and so I think we should probably start off by addressing that.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about that, Steve?
Yeah, I'll take that. So yes, it's I actually love the question because it means that people want PowerShell 7, right? And I know that there are some enterprises and businesses that can't install software outside of Windows Inbox, even if it's written by Microsoft, signed by Microsoft, all that good stuff. So the short answer is it's not coming anytime soon. Inbox. We've done a ton of work to make it as easy as it is to install into Windows. So, like the Microsoft Store, Winget, off of GitHub. If you install the MSI, I believe by now we also, by default, enable Microsoft updates. So if you get updates automatically. So we are still working towards a potential path. But, the reason we can't do it is really it's a huge difference between .NET support lifecycle and Windows support lifecycle. So since PowerShell 7 is based on .NET and not .NET Framework, there's at most 3 years support, and Windows requires 5 + 5, 10 years. And then if, in some cases, Azure adds additional support if you host it in Azure. So it can be a very long time. And again, it's nothing wrong that the .NET team's doing, but they don't want to support that kind of lifecycle, so we can't ship it in Windows as of today.
All right, we'll start. Does anyone have a question in the audience that they'd like to share? Otherwise,
Get them warmed up.
All right, we'll start with the first question I got from the forum here, which was, when will we get a PowerShell certification or applied skill? I think this is a good question. I thought there was some at some point, but
Anyone?
I think we can absolutely look into that. I know that I believe the certification platform was going through a pretty big change, and so they were invigorating a lot of new ones, and so I think we should definitely look back into making a PowerShell certification. But nothing, I can't give any particular ETAs on something like that. Cool. Oh, here's a good question. So, what's on the future roadmap for machine config?
That's a question for me. And by the way, if there's any specific thing that I may have missed from the session, for those of us who attended, I see there are some familiar faces. Please feel free to raise your hand and remind me. But we're really excited about tackling some top priority asks from our customers. So I think the first one is a lot of customers have been asking, when are we going to support private storage for packages that are stored in Azure Storage blobs and are accessed through managed identity? So we can definitely say that we're on the tail end for the engineering work, and we plan to deliver that sometime this year, and probably very close to implementing that. And I know there've been some really cool asks as well on how that naturally translates to storing credentials by putting credential values in Key Vault and then sort of having some form of referencing there. So those projects are tied to one another, and so enabling managed identity allows us to implement the other one. So that's something that's really exciting. Another thing that we're sort of thinking about is sort of allowing customers who are solving Azure sort of baseline scenarios through group policy today, and sort of providing an experience that allows you to implement the baselines that you're executing through group policy, through machine config. And so we're really excited that that's coming soon. And one really exciting thing is our service guarantees idempotency. So that's like a really great value add for those of us who are switching from on-prem to the cloud. There's so many other cool things on the roadmap that I'd be happy to talk about if there's any specific thing, but those have been some of the two major asks from this conference. So I just wanted to share that more broadly. So thanks.
Cool. Thank you. I'll pause again in case anyone wants to say a question
Or
out
make
loud
Justin
here.
run.
Or just make Justin run. You can raise your hand and then put it down if you'd like to. So yeah.
I don't bite, I promise.
Justin.
Oh, there's a question back there. There we go.
I submitted the question also via the QR code, but if Justin has to run, then let's just ask it this way. You thought about the predictor during the first day, and I was wondering if this predictor can also be used, for example, if a module will be deprecated, so we can use it to suggest the new version of modules. For example, with in the past, the Azure AD module being deprecated and a new version being available. Is this something we can use it for?
So you can absolutely use, so feedback providers are probably perhaps a better way to surface that kind of feedback if a module is out of date or is getting deprecated. After someone uses that module, the feedback provider will trigger and then provide, some feedback on it. And then that's where you can say, hey, you're on version 1.0, 2.0 is out, let's upgrade, or hey, this version is being deprecated on X date, like you should probably move. That is absolutely something that's possible. What really needs to happen is module owners need to implement it themselves to put that logic and put that information in the module so that when people use them, they can be notified directly as they use it, that there's kind of a heads up there. So
let me address that. That's the current state today.
Yes.
One of the features in the PS Resource Get roadmap in the future, and again, I'm not saying when this will happen, but I would like to see it happen myself, which is to have a notification system so that when you publish a module update, you can indicate maybe a version is deprecated or that one has a critical security fix or something like that. That way the user, based on governance rules, it could be either auto-updated or at least to get some notification through the operating system that they need to update these things, right? So that is something on top of our mind. I can't commit to when that will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that's already implemented. It's not per command. Oh, the
He's
question
saying Azure 8. Well,
No.
I'm just adding the answer, not adding the new question. Right away. Question was about using predictor when you're using the commands that will be deprecated. But the Azure AD example is that when you use Azure AD command, you already get a warning, not based on predictor, but just like a warning immediately that will give you a URL for migration documentation. So that's already implemented for that one. I don't know for others, but that one is kind of covered in the same way as when you start Windows PowerShell, you get the advertisement for PowerShell 7, right?
Azure PowerShell also has some update features.
I was going
You
to
wanna
add that in the Azure PowerShell team, we've been working on having that logic. If you've tried, we have that for a bit, but we're still learning what makes sense. What is the kind of level of information you want to have? What is bothering versus what is useful? We are looking at also potentially having that annunciation once in a while, but not every single time. So there are ways of tweaking that experience, and we're learning as we speak. And the intent is obviously, as Steve was saying, that maybe at some point we'll get it.
Cool. We'll take a question from the QR code. Why is the Exchange Online module not open sourced? We don't work on the Exchange module yet.
No, so Exchange Online module is owned by the Exchange Online team, so I can't necessarily speak for them. However, I think many teams at Microsoft, I've tried to tell them. I'll give you an example. Maybe like what one was it? The AD module, right? Like I told them, hey, if you guys can open source, then maybe the community can help you fix some issues or make it cross-platform and stuff like that. And, I think different teams have different priorities. We're kind of like one of the teams on the forefront of open source. Not every team is. You'll have to ask the Exchange Online team.
Another question from the audience.
Hello. Good. Yeah, so you showed off the new AI stuff last couple of days ago. And I must say we've spent like 20 years teaching people that, you get help, get command, you use get member, the 3 magical commands. And now suddenly we apply to an entirely new side shell. Feels like kind of off. So what's the plan of implementing it? Implementing AI in actual PowerShell, like without the sidebar thing? Is there any plan to add it as commandlets or as for get help and then ask a question instead of whatever? Or is this the sort of way forward?
This is so to address the sidebar thing. I think this is an area that we're exploring as a different interactive way to chat with the shell. It's a one that we have worked with people to understand what's the best way to display these AI information and also still have your context of your main shell. It also gets us around a lot of technical limitations we have in order to integrate AI a little bit deeper into the shell so that we're not we kind of have in parallelism these kind of assistants as you work, so it's not too interruptive as you go or lagging as you go. As far as bringing it to the shell itself, I think we are still interested in that. There's right now just many technical limitations around the time it takes for some of these models. The number one question I get with predictors is like, why aren't you just hooking predictors up to OpenAI, right? That takes time. You have to make a call out to the box. You have to talk to OpenAI. You have to get a response back from OpenAI, and then you got to put in the predictor buffer. That takes too long for our timeout period for predictors because we want to keep the experience in the shell as quick as possible. Because the last thing you want is as you type a character A and that A shows up now, right? Like it's you don't want that kind of lag. So we really want to have we really are trying to have an emphasis on performance in the shell. And so we're looking at these other explorative ways. But there's been a number of amazing community modules that bring some of the get like the one you just saw 30 minutes ago with the pshelp.copilot. There's a lot of amazing community modules there that utilize the PowerShell commandletness of talking to AI. So yeah.
Let me just add a few things here. So with the current Project Mercury or the Execute AI SSH, you can actually directly ask it a question, right? There's a way to do that. We just don't think that is necessarily the ideal or natural experience that we think users may want. Like I think the key thing about the sidecar experience is that talking to customers and focus groups, like today, people might bring up a browser, ask ChatGPT, go back to the terminal, and that switch is actually, there's a cognitive load. It's just not the best experience. And then if you're doing something like SSH, you may not even, or if you just have a terminal, you may not even have like a browser to go to, right? So we're right now kind of really exploring the user experience, which is why we kind of revealed it early under a project name, so we can get that feedback to know what direction we should go. The other thing I want to call out is a lot of the code that we have today is more focused on platform. So it allows you to talk to different models, right? So if you looked at the repo, we have like a example like Llama 3, OpenAI, of course, and things like that. So we're really kind of building a platform and hoping that working with the community, we can figure out what's the best user experience to enable.
Yeah, and it's created a paradigm as well where we can create, since we've created this platform that Steve talks about, you can create an AI agent or that doesn't even have AI. You can just have it call get help, and you can kind of have get help side by side with that. So there's different ways to think about that, but yeah, it's an experiment.
So this is a follow-up question that we already have GitHub Copilot for CLI. We can, when we are in VS Code and we have a GitHub Copilot extension, we can call the chat part in the terminal as well. Wouldn't it be better for PowerShell team to work together with that team instead of creating completely new solution for the AI capabilities?
I think yes. I think we are looking at it from a little bit of a different angle than GitHub Copilot as far as the platformness. We heard very early on that people have apprehension, so we want to make sure that we support enterprise models and the models that people want to use. I do think there is an opportunity in the future around further collaboration and connection with GitHub Copilot, but I can't say for certain what that looks like yet.
Because I always thought that the problem is actually that the GitHub Copilot is a commercial product, and your AI support will be without cost. So we hope.
Well, just to be clear, we have an open source platform, but the backend right now, it needs to be brought. You have to bring your own agent, basically. Yes. So in the future, hopefully, we have talked with the GitHub Copilot team. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise we've talked to them. And I'm hoping at some point they may have an agent so that you can plug that in, so that you have a different type of experience, right? If you use the GitHub Copilot CLI today, you have a very specific kind of, I forget what their command is, but you ask it a question, right? So we're building other things where, because of the sidecar, we can do things that they can't do easily.
Thank you.
As Justin's running, we'll answer a question from the forum. How can I register my private PS repository for all users with PS Resource Get?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
How can I register my private PS repository for all users with PS Resource Get?
Right. Okay. So I guess I'm not sure what the type of repository is, but generally speaking, if it's like a repository that is supported by PS Resource Get, you can just use register PS Resource Get to actually register it. It should by default be all users. So I think that should be fine. We are trying to work on, well, as long as you have the right privileges, we are trying to work on more specific configuration with repositories as well, so that is a little bit more easily configurable. So that is also in the roadmap. I'm not sure when exactly that will be done, but there is an issue for that in PS Resource Get. So feel free to comment on that. You can probably just like Google it, but there's an issue there. You can check it out, see the comments, and also contribute to it if you have any specific scenarios that you would like to see kind of like supported in that. But yeah, that is hopefully going to be coming in the future as well.
If this is like a governance type of question where you're in an enterprise and you want to say your users only have access to certain repositories and want it registered by default, that is something we're thinking about and will show up in the future.
As far as I know, I have to PIM and MFA and authenticate all in one to do anything in Azure or in Office 365. So you need different modules to be able to do that from the command line or from PowerShell session. will the graph module be the one that rules them all? And if so, what's the timeline to replace AZ modules and what no?
I think it's a question about graph and AZ modules. Is that the question?
I try to rephrase.
Sound is very.
So I think what she's asking is there's a lot of commands that require like MFA to connect, and you have also it's segmented where you have like AZ for parts of it, Graph for others, and you're asking like is eventually Microsoft Graph, because the idea behind Graph was that it was like the one surface for everything. Is like it all going to be under Graph, or what do you guys see as the way that's going to evolve? Is that did I get it right?
Okay, so let me try to rephrase. Did you get the question?
How dare you?
The noise is extremely terrible.
I think so. It's a question like right now there is overlap between commandlets and graph, and the question is it going to be moving towards one solution, or how do they maintain separate but similar?
Okay. So yes, there is an overlap between the AZ command and the graph command. The reason why this overlap is, and there is no plan to remove it at any point soon, is that some of those AD or AZ commands related to graph resources are useful in order to be successful for Azure scenarios. And the intention is to allow customers to be successful with the minimum number of modules needed to get there. So that's why we have this overlap. And we think it's okay to keep it as is, as long as we are clear on when it is. And maybe we should do a better job at clarifying why we have this overlap. But that's the initial intention, to have those Azure AD command in the AZ set of modules.
There's just not the overlap, but I mean, if I want to authenticate and do MFA and do PIM, which I have to at my office, I have to use both modules. And I'm just using Graph. I can't do it without AZ modules. I'm just like hoping I want to do anything in Graph and just be done with it. You know what I mean?
So if I heard it right, like you would actually prefer more overlap in a sense that you can just stay with one versus the other?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just for the authentication.
So you don't have to mix.
If I may, so one aspect is because she's in an environment that has Azure and PIM, like when she logs in, she's got to do her sign in, and then she probably's got to do her MFA prompt, and then she's got to PIM to her role to do all that. And then she's got to do all of that again in Graph. So maybe is there any sort of planned collaboration between like the AZ and Graph modules where like you could have sort of a more unified context where you log in and could use the same context for both?
Okay.
Is that good? Yeah. Okay.
Single sign-on,
good.
that's a big issue between Graph and the AZ. So technically, behind the scenes, the Graph module is using what's called a third-party application ID, and the AZ module is using a first-party application app ID. That creates a little bit of incompatibility with the goal of being single sign-on. You cannot share this authentication between first-party app, which is Microsoft's own application, and third-party, which is an app that doesn't have pre-authorization. With the AZ command, the value of the first-party app ID is you run your AZ command, they are pre-authorized, and they can run. Basically, it just works. The Graph command needs to be pre-authorized. You need to consent access for those commands on your environment. And that's a problem to create that SSO environment. Now, the reason why Graph has a third-party application ID is because with Graph, you can access pretty much everything. So if it was pre-authorized, then whoever has access to those commands could access to everything, and the threat of that is too much. So that's why the Graph team has decided to go for third-party application ID. If we wanted to achieve SSO at some point, that means that the AZ command would have to go to a third-party application ID, technically degrade or downgrade the experience. And every time you want to run an AZ command on a new tenant, you would have to authorize that environment. Is it something that you want? If you say yes, as a majority, we could do it. We can do that switch anytime. We don't feel that our customers are ready for that experience because it's going to break a lot of scenarios. And that's why we haven't done that so far. So it's kind of a conundrum that we don't have a good solution for at this point. I'm just explaining the reason why we have to re-authenticate if you want to move to Graph. Now coming to the point of, do we want to expose more resources in the Azure environment or the AZ module? We talked about it, and the problem is we don't know where to stop. If we start going beyond as users and group and applications and service principle, then where do we stop that open door? And we would fall into the trap that the graph team didn't want to go to, which is having access to everything with this first-party application. So the reason why we have limited to the limited set of resources we have today is because of that authorization or pre-authorization.
I have a question. Command. Poke web request. Starting PowerShell 6, it only supports basic parsing. But we were using methods that are not available in basic parsing.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Okay. The question is about command that invoke web request.
The web commandlets?
Yes, invoke web request specifically.
Oh, invoke web request.
Yes.
Okay.
Starting PowerShell 6, only basic parsing is supported.
The basic parsing for HTML?
Yes.
That's the
but
question.
we were using methods that are not available in basic parsing.
Okay.
So can you bring back the full parsing?
All right. So the question is when you switch from Windows PowerShell 5.1 to PowerShell Core 6 Plus, including PowerShell 7, you no longer have the ability to parse the HTML into an object. And the reason for that is that in Windows PowerShell 5.1, it really relied on Internet Explorer to do that work. So when we did the work to port to .NET Core, because we want to be cross-platform, and we also recognize that Internet Explorer isn't going to hang around, we didn't want to have that dependency. So what we currently recommend is to use, there's several modules on the PowerShell gallery by the community that will parse HTML, and it's probably much more modern than what Windows PowerShell with Internet Explorer provides. There's no plan to bring that back in PowerShell 7.
Yeah, Andrew. Well, okay, there's another question over there. As he's moving, we'll ask a question from the group, from the QR code. Demetrius, any features from Winget that are exciting coming up?
Yeah, we're actually getting ready to release Winget 1.8. Couple of things in there. The repair command is something that's been asked for. If you've got an MSIX or an MSI-based application that's been acting up for you, you're going to be able to run repair without having to go to the control panel or call other commandlets. And the other big thing that I think a lot of enterprise customers have been looking for is we're adding support to download applications from the Microsoft Store. It will include the license as well as any other framework dependencies from the store. It will require a login based on the Enter ID tenant so that you get the right license. But that means you'll be able to download those applications for offline delivery in either air-gapped or other network isolated environments. Those are probably the two biggest new features that are coming.
Cool. Question there?
Yeah. Historically, all the Microsoft modules have been written by the team providing the product, like the Excel or Exchange team, the Graph module, and so forth. Is there a world where the PowerShell team would be more involved, helping them to look more like what I expect from a human-written PowerShell module? Like the old AD modules, we love those. And then it just progressed downhill from there. I'm really looking forward to the new Entra modules you talked about yesterday. But is there a world where you could help out these teams getting more in line and providing a better user experience?
Well, I was just gonna say we do try to help the teams that do come to us. It is quite a lot of teams, so it is very difficult to, I guess, manage all of that. But did you want to?
All right. So here's what I would say. Back in the one of the old days with Jeffrey Snover, he did a great job, like working with upper. He was pretty high up, so working to have mandates for these teams to follow. These you may have heard like CECs and stuff like that. So a lot of that has changed. So we don't have necessarily that mandate. There are mandates that, at least in Azure, teams produce like, commandments and whatnot. So I think one of the things that we do, the PowerShell team does, is internally we do have like PowerShell office hours for these teams to help them out. But it is really more of a push model. Like they push to us, but we don't know about these teams because they don't tell us that during commandlets. So I think the best recourse is really to provide them feedback. And you can also even suggest they talk to us.
I want to add on that, that in the Azure world, we have the requirement, every services that is going out in Azure has the requirement to have Azure modules, Azure PowerShell modules. And our team is working with those services that are coming with a new version or a new service to ensure that the module is following certain guidelines. We don't have a very precise guidance, but we generate those commands based on the API definition. And that's the best way we can ensure consistency across the different services. We have some inconsistencies, and we're very aware of some of those inconsistencies that are between the generated modules and those that are handcrafted. It turns out that some capabilities that we have in the generated modules are difficult to bring into the handcrafted modules because of how they've been built. I can go in details here, but that's the idea. We're trying to address those inconsistencies, at least on the Azure side of the house, to make a more consistent and uniform experience. Now, when it comes to other services, and you were talking of Graph, so we work with Graph to share the same engine. We also are in touch every now and then with the Teams team, and we are trying to expose that across the organization. But as Steve was saying, that's a job that needs to be done at a higher level, and we're working on that, but it takes time.
Thank you for the question. I'll take a question from the forum here. I just had it. Hang on, I lost it. Any other questions? Sorry, Alexander. Sorry, there's so many in the forums. I gotta.
There's one back there.
One back there. Oh, thank you. God, I can't see what these lights.
There's a bright light right.
Yeah. It's like right there. You're invisible. All right, go ahead.
No problem. Oh, that's a lot of reverb. So we recently saw again with some research that in the VS Code marketplace, there's quite some malicious extensions available with, for example, the thing about Dracula, which was published. Are you also making an effort in the PS Gallery to check for more of security things that we can make sure that the modules we are downloading are really the modules we're expecting with things like typo squatting and these kinds of techniques?
Sorry, I heard some of that. It's really echoey here.
It's about PowerShell Gallery and like protecting against malicious content.
Yeah, okay. So we've been trying, I think, to try to be more secure in general, and to try to ensure like the modules that you are installing aren't malicious, like really securely aren't malicious. This is why we're kind of going in the ACR direction. And so that's like private ACR instances, and then also trying to do more with Microsoft Artifact Registry, like more of a public secure container registry. I think in general, we are trying to, there's not a whole lot of like security in the gallery in the sense that you can absolutely trust this module. We are trying to move more towards like validation, like Microsoft modules. Teams can reach out to us and we can give them a blue check mark to say that this is in fact like a Microsoft team. That is more of like a publisher check though. It's not really like an actual module publish validation. For that, I think we are kind of less focused on the gallery and more trying to focus on ACR and MAR and kind of the validations, doing better validation there.
Let me just add a few things that we have done, or some stuff is in progress that wasn't mentioned yet. So for example, I think we're going to enable or have enabled namespacing on the gallery. So that would at least give you a identifier. So only the publishers of the module who are valid for that namespace can publish under like Microsoft and potentially other third parties in the future. We do some work internally to do some detection via fuzzy matching for typo squatting, name squatting and stuff like that. So that if we detect it, then we do reach out to the author to see if it was a mistake or whatever, or we remove it or whatever the case may be. But in general, the PowerShell Gallery is public. It was never intended to be trusted, and that's why the ACR direction is moving us towards a place where you can have a trusted gallery, especially for first party or company registries.
I found the question that I lost earlier because so the question was, will GIA be ported to SSH remoting?
Okay. Was it from the same person who asked me this earlier? All right. So here's what I'll say. There's no immediate plan right now. First off, you don't know what GIA is. It's just enough administration. So this is a feature in, although you can use PowerShell 7. It's in PowerShell and PowerShell 5.1, but it works over WinRM. And it has a lot of dependencies on changes that were made during that era in WinRM to make it work. So although you can do PowerShell remoting over SSH, and you can get a what we call GIA Lite kind of experience, because I forget what version of 7 we did this. It might have been like 7.3, where you can actually apply a session configuration. So you can constrain it to some extent, but you don't get the full protections of GIA or being able to run under like a different credential. So go back to the question. It is something on top of our mind. It is not going to happen in the 7.5 timeframe, which is this year. I'm hoping we can free up some resources maybe in the future and revisit it in the future. It's not something I've forgotten about, something I wanted. It's not a small item to make this work.
Cool. We're getting close to time, but there's been a couple questions about what each of us are excited about for like the future. What either existing features we are excited about or something in the future that we're excited about. So I figured we can kind of maybe end off by going down the line and having each folk talk about something in their space that they're excited about now and in the future. I guess I got to start. I'm pretty excited. I personally love PS Readline. Like I said, I think it's underutilized in the community demo. I think there's a lot of cool, powerful things there. Another module that I'll call out that I think is also a little underutilized is the text utility module. It does some really good work with converting text to objects from text output commands. So it's the text utility module. We've published it to the gallery. It should be available there. So I can't demo or anything, but definitely check it out. And something I'm excited for the future is more of the kind of canvassing of AI across some of these platforms. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to really assist people and assist ways for deployment and management and use of PowerShell. So there's my quick spiel.
Right. I won't take too much time. So to be honest, I'm usually most excited whenever I see stuff from the community that I didn't even think of, like the demo from Jordan on PSD Tours. Like, although I was aware of that one, like I think that's very creative. I think it'd be really great for pranks, to be honest. But for myself, like what I work on, I think getting DSCV through the GA is both a lot of work, but also I'm very excited to get that to the next stage so I can get a lot more feedback.
I think from my point of view, what AI can bring to our commands, the Azure command, obviously that's my area, but what AI all up can help, how it can help us be more productive with those Azure related commands is what excites me and keeps me going forward.
I am excited, of course, with container registry work. I'm excited to hear feedback, hear users actually use that and see how it goes. Haven't had a lot of feedback on that yet, so I'm really kind of curious how that experience is going to be like for other people. So I think in the short term, that's what I'm really excited about. Kind of long term, I will say that I'm kind of invested, and I've heard a lot of feedback at this conference about module paths and just kind of improving that experience.
I personally am really excited about sort of the work we've been doing to integrate machine configuration with all the different other services within Azure that customers are leveraging. Being a product manager in machine config gives me the opportunity to work with the Azure Arc team for scenarios that are more on-prem and multi-cloud, and sort of with the PowerShell team and sort of keeping up with the developments on the DSC side, and with the other folks in the governance team with policy and resource graph. And so there's a lot of, interesting sort of applications and how we can enable customers to manage their servers sort of efficiently while leveraging the Azure ecosystem as a whole. And it's just such a great time to be uniquely positioned to deliver that. I've heard so many interesting comments from you all today and over the past couple of days. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
I'm currently most excited about Winget, going to ship in Windows Server 2025. That's been a very long ask, and it's also been a lot of work internally. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think what I'm looking forward to is when we have something where we can actually generate a configuration file that represents the current state of your machine as it is. It'll enable client to cloud scenarios, cloud to client scenarios, and it allows you to kind of manually work through to get your machine to the state you want it, and then simply replicate that state.
And I'm definitely most excited right now about all of the Azure Arc integrations with Windows Server 2025 across Arpego, hot patching capabilities, etc. We're working really closely for that. And what I'm looking forward to is bringing along customers on their SCCM modernization journey. Saw that a lot. I heard that a lot around coming in with our next-gen server management solutions around Azure and extending that again to off-Azure environments across hybrid and multi-cloud. So really looking forward to that.
I really excited. AI can integrate everywhere, even in the Azure PowerShell. This is my domain, and Azure CLI. So you can easily do for the coding of script, and the efficiency improved more bigger and bigger. And also we can collaborate with other tools, for example, like GitHub Actions, and also with Video Studios. And you can easily to use Azure CLI to transfer to the Azure PowerShell, or you can use Azure PowerShell transfer back to the Azure CLI. So all of this is AI bring us. So yeah, thank you.
Cool. Well, I know we haven't gotten to all the questions. There's over 50 questions asked. So over time already, but I wanted to maybe, how do I do this? Hang on one second. I'm going to end the show and then go off. Where is it? There it is. Oh God. Okay. So I know we didn't get to everyone's questions today, but what I was thinking is maybe we'll use the next community call in July to actually address some of these questions because that's a great platform to get involved with the community. It's a great time to speak with us for any sort of questions at all. So I wanted to just do a call out there that if your question didn't get answered today, we will try our best perhaps in the July community call to address it. So here's some information about that. Like I said, it's the third Thursday of every month, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is recorded, and so you'll be able to watch it back later, and it will be posted to YouTube pretty much the week after. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for your amazing questions. We're so sorry we didn't get to all of them. There are some really, really good ones in there that I really want to follow up on, but we'll be here for the afternoon here. So please feel free to come up to us and ask the questions yourself. We have stickers. We would love to talk more about these questions and talk more about everything that you're doing. So thank you very much for having us.